The note C at the center of the piano has its own name that musicians use more than any other, middle C. You find it labeled in every beginner method, every theory textbook, every piece of sheet music for piano. And yet, if you look at a page of written music, middle C is not on the treble staff. It is not on the bass staff either. It hovers in the gap between them on a single tiny line all its own, belonging fully to neither staff and readable from both. That gap is not an accident. It is the seam where two separate 5-line systems are stitched together into one map of the keyboard, and once you understand that seam, the grand staff goes from looking complicated to looking exactly like what it is, a continuous ladder from the lowest note to the highest. Piano music is written on two staves joined side by side as one system. The treble staff sits on top, its curl marking the G line. The bass staff sits below, its two dots marking the F line. A brace on the left brackets them together, and a single bar line runs straight down through both, because the two hands are always playing in time together. This paired system is called the grand staff. The treble staff covers the upper part of the keyboard, the notes above the middle of the piano, which the right hand usually plays. The bass staff covers the lower part, below the middle, which the left hand usually plays. Together they cover the full range a pianist needs for almost any piece of music. Every note on the keyboard has a fixed home somewhere on this system, either on a line, in a space, or on a short ledger line extension above or below a staff. The grand staff is the written address of the piano. Now here is the part that ties both staves together. Count down from the bottom line of the treble staff. The bottom line is E. One step below that is D, sitting just below the staff. One more step down is C, which needs its own tiny line because it sits between the two staves. That tiny line is the first ledger line below the treble staff. Now come up from the other direction. Count up from the top line of the bass staff. The top line is A. One step above that is B, just above the staff. One more step up is C again, needing the same tiny line, this time as the first ledger line above the bass staff. That single short line below the treble and that single short line above the bass are one and the same position. They are the same note on the same piano key. Middle C. It reads as one ledger line below treble, and as one ledger line above bass, and the keyboard confirms, there is only one key. That shared ledger line is the exact join point of the grand staff. Because middle C is the join, the two staves form an unbroken ladder. Start on a low note in the bass, say the G at the bottom of the bass staff, and walk up step by step, G, A, B, then C, D, E, F on the bass staff lines and spaces, rising through the bass register, crossing middle C on its ledger line, and then continuing without any gap up into the treble staff, D, E, F, G, A, B, climbing through the upper register. Every step up the staff is one step up the keyboard. No note is skipped, no step is doubled. The moment you reach middle C, you simply pass through it and carry on. The ladder is continuous. This matters when you read music, because a phrase can begin in the bass staff and move upward into the treble staff, or start high and fall across the boundary. The join is smooth if you know that middle C is the crossing point. Walk the scale across the join once and the two staves lock together into a single picture. In practice, the right hand almost always reads the treble staff and the left hand reads the bass staff. That division of labor is why the system was designed this way. The two staves put each hand's natural range on its own set of lines. But hands do cross the boundary. A right-hand melody can dip below middle C, sitting on the bass staff temporarily, and a left-hand bass line can rise above it into the treble. When that happens, the note simply appears on the other staff, with a small cue in the score to show which hand plays it. The staves never move or change their meaning, only the hands reach across. Think of the grand staff as a fixed map on the page and the two hands as two readers scanning different regions of that map at any moment. Middle C stays in the same place. The boundary is just a guideline for convenience, not a wall. The whole keyboard now has a written address. Every key from the lowest bass note to the highest treble note sits somewhere on the grand staff, either on a line, in a space, or on a ledger line at the edge. Middle C is the landmark in the center, readable from both staves, and its ledger line is the scene that proves the two systems are one. Take a piece of piano music and you can now follow both staves at once, knowing the treble maps the upper register, the bass maps the lower, and middle C connects them. Next, we go further out from the center, notes that live above the treble staff or below the bass staff, on those short extra ledger lines, and how to read them without losing your place.